Well, welcome everybody. It's a small group today. If you see something that you have a question about, why just ask me. I just as soon leave the speakers on, and this won't really be a full hour. My layout is not all that large. Uh, a few months ago, really, I bought one of these things called a cop cam, which is just a little cube, and I've had a lot of fun with that. A lot of the people on this have already seen some of these things. Some of you will be new to it. So this one is a ride with the Milwaukee train, and I put a few slides in here to kind of help remind me of what I want to talk about. So I guess with that, we just will get started. So here's a little bit of the history of how it got started. We lived where the Northwestern and Milwaukee crossed. And of course, after the bridge on the Mississippi was taken care of and built, why the two railroads speedily moved across Iowa to Omaha. And they paralleled each other. In the town of Tama, they crossed each other. We lived in what was a village called Gladstone on the Milwaukee. And Dad and his brothers had a farm which was about a half mile away. And the farm sat right in the middle of the Northwestern and Milwaukee. We had land on both sides of the railroad track. So in the 40s and 50s, I saw all kinds of trains go by. There would be the Northwestern trains and the Union Pacific Streamliners. Milwaukee had a couple of passenger trains, including the Hiawatha. And the Arrow was at night, so you could hear it go by. In fact, I even saw the Hiawatha still running in steam at that time. The Northwestern had a lot of steam trains at that time. My dad, we raised a lot of hogs and cattle, and we shipped them into Chicago. Most of them were shipped, if they went by rail, they were shipped out of Gladstone on the Milwaukee. I had an uncle and some cousins that lived there, and they also shipped from Gladstone. Some of my uncles and cousins worked for the railroad, a couple of them for the Northwestern, and my one uncle worked as an engineer for the Milwaukee, and of course that kind of locked me into the love of trains. His son continued to work as an engineer for the Milwaukee and both in Cedar Rapids. So anyway, I stole this proto freelancing layout. I thought that was a pretty good title for what I do. Anyway, I started with the American Flyer, like a lot of us, Lionel American Flyer back in about 51. I had a little layout up in the attic, something like about 8 by 8. Part of it was on a bed, part of it was on a door, part of it was on a 4 by 8 sheet of plywood. A lot of Plasticville. Time passed, you married, then the hobby returned. And I started building a lot of things. The first kit was a mainline models Pennsylvania N6 caboose. And of course I don't use it anymore, but still on the shelf. Had built many layouts, was close to clubs and joined several clubs. And we've retired now in Michigan. The layout I have today is about 97% complete. And I'm not sure you ever complete a layout as you generally find things that should be taken care of. And this cop cam has found a lot of things that I missed. So I guess with that, we'll start.
Take a ride on a Reading.
Yeah, so this is the area that I model in these towns, are real towns in Iowa. They stretch across 4 counties. And starting basically from Cedar Rapids, going west to Marshalltown.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is the route. So you notice the orange is the Milwaukee and the green is the Northwestern. And I'll tell you a little bit why the train will go on both railroads when we get through it. And coming up, you'll see some red lines, and that'll be showing you the route in that movie that we'll be doing.
This is one of the layouts that I go to operate on in Michigan.
Was there a question?
No, I think Alan was talking to somebody else.
Okay, no. Anyway, we're going to try to start off here with Milwaukee Train 102. It's an eastbound train. We're going to leave the Council Bluffs staging yard, and we're going to proceed to the Spider Tunnel. And you can see the red line there where we're going to end up going underground. And so this will start the first movie.
All right, we're gonna stop for 1 second because I forgot to share this the way I'm supposed to.
At least you know that and can fix it. I see John's with us. Alan. Jerry. Chuck's gone back to the dark side.
All right, we're back in business. This should work a lot better now. So here we go.
So we're going to take the east route. We're going to cross Highway 30. You're going to notice that sometimes we're going to be in a diesel locomotive and sometimes a steam. When I filmed these little sections, I didn't always use the same train.
Didn't blow your horn for the crossing.
Well, we tried to stay away from the horn. The rocks and stuff are all ceiling tile, broken up ceiling tile. And the area where I'm modeling here really was the Rock Island Railroad. We're breaking up a little bit, Greg. Things not going quite so good.
Things moving at my end.
Now you notice the spider web. That's why I call it the spider web tunnel. I'm not going to leave it. Take it out. I'm not going to show you going through the underground. The reason I built that. Okay. Anyway, Greg, we've lost our clarity.
Did everybody lose the clarity or just Ron?
I've lost some
It's
on the major screen, not on the people.
Yeah, it's a little fuzzy on the.
Can't read a thing.
Turn fuzzy.
Yeah, and Greg, I've been watching the live feed on as well, and it's got a few problems, unfortunately. Plus, it's about a minute delay.
Yeah.
Which stands to reason, but there seems to be a few problems with it. I don't know whether they're affecting each other with Zoom.
There you go.
Better,
Sharp. That's sharp.
better.
Okay, well, the first town we're going to come to, coming out of the tunnel, will be Tama, and I'll point out some of the buildings here as we come into it. Now, the Milwaukee Freight House, which is a picture I took out of the internet. It happens to be at Burlington, Iowa. It just seemed to fit quite well with what I'm doing. Over to the right is Spooner's Grocery Company, which was definitely there. They received fruits and vegetables via the railroad, and they had their own trucking line, and they were a wholesale grocer, but you could also buy things there. Down in the left hand is the actual Milwaukee depot. On the right is the model of it, and it is on the background, but I had no good pictures of it in color, but someone had made a model of it, and so I used the model to actually make the background picture. In the center is a if you come into Tama, why the big head Indian head there announces where you're at. Tama has an Indian reservation. Of course, we now have a casino to go with it, of course. So over on the right, you'll see the red line. It kind of slipped behind the people, but you see the red line there that shows where we're going to go next. So, okay, great. So there, now we see that. So anyway, we're going to leave Tama and we're going to go 5 miles east to Gladstone. And so that's, go ahead, Greg.
And we're going this direction, right?
Yeah,
Right
and
to
we're gonna-
left.
We're going to go
Yeah.
east.
Clockwise.
This time we'll be on a steam engine. Now you get why I quit using the whistle. Anyway, we're coming into Gladstone. We passed the little schoolhouse I went to. Greg, I'm not sure what's going on, but instead of it being smooth, it's just jumpy, like it's just pictures.
Yeah, you get one of the, that's, so I was doing it the optimized way and it was blurry. And if I do it this way, it's jumpy. So I think those are our choices today for some reason.
Yeah, Greg, we're not full screen either. We're getting the 2 slide view at the
Oh,
moment.
okay.
You had full screen earlier.
Sharing the wrong screen then.
Zooms tend to have little technical problems.
It's just the people operating. That's like saying your layout has technical problems when the operators are jamming things up.
That's right.
There's a full screen.
Yeah, that's nice and clear now.
Yeah. Good.
So we'll talk a little bit about Gladstone here.
Cool.
There's up at the top left is the actual Gladstone store. They did sell gasoline, which in that picture doesn't show gasoline. In the next is the Otter Creek number 7 school I went to school at, and coming across is Rucker's elevator. And people ask me, what is that gray area with the slot in it? Well, they had a corn crib there, and just someday I might build that corn crib and it'll sit on that. The depot was a 2-story depot. However, it was gone before I remember. And the picture right below shows the depot and the old elevator. That's a Sidem elevator. It's a little bit different than the real one was, but close enough. And in the middle is the stock pens. Now, I didn't have room for them all, but I built just a small part of it, and it was only a 2-pen stock pen. It was a little bit different in that the pens were on both sides of the loading dock, a loading chute, but I had to modify that a little bit. And below is the actual elevator in 1960. At the time, they even had, they sold a little bit of lumber and a little bit of everything there that you could buy, but they soon gave that up and just stayed with just nothing but buying grain and so forth. They shipped quite a bit of corn and beans and oats out of that elevator. And the village only had 3 houses, so, and counting a store, which they lived up in the upstairs. This was on Highway 30, which of course was the interstate of the day. And they had a couple of cabins there. Okay. So now we'll go from Gladstone to Vining, which is 7 miles away from Gladstone. We're going to cross over at the M Junction. Then we come into Vining. Now, Vining is in fact a fantasy because there was a town of Vining, absolutely nothing like this. This is buildings and stuff that I had, and I just adopted them. For example, a depot really is an M and St. L depot. And so I just, the fantasy part is that the Milwaukee moved it over because they needed a depot. Vining was about 7 miles from Gladstone. It's from Tama, was at milepost 281. Vining is 269, which is about 12 miles, but there's a big hill there, 29 feet. But when Vining was originally settled, why they had a water tank and stuff up there because steam engines needed to be have water put back in after their climb there. And after that, then we start leveling off and head towards Cedar Rapids. The Iowa River goes through Tama. That's the big reason for the elevation change. So from here, we'll go on to our next slide. Okay, so we're going to head from there. We're going to go head all the way to Tama Junction. And this is the only big straightaway on the layout. So we have a speed limit of passenger 70 and 50 for freights. Even though this would come out a little bit out of focus, Greg, can you somehow turn this back on so that it's on regular time?
For the smoothness, you mean?
Yeah, so that you could actually see how the cop cam does a pretty good job of photographing.
Yeah, let's see how we do here. Did I share the right one this time?
Yeah, we've lost a little focus, but there's not a lot here to see.
We're seeing two screens again.
Okay, sorry about that. Hold on. Here we go.
So on the right is the Northwestern, and we don't go into that yard at all. It looks like double track, but it really isn't. Which now we're behind a diesel now. This is still the town of Marshalltown, but it's kind of divided into two sections. All right. Coming around the corner. It was real interesting when I first saw this with the cop cam, why all of this area was not finished. So I had to come back and refinish part of this because this was nothing but white plaster back here. Okay, now Greg, is it possible to go backwards and do it the other way so that you can see the, put it back in focus?
Yep. Oh, that probably didn't work. How's that?
Oh,
Looks
All right,
good.
All right, we're at Tama. Now here's the reason why we're going to go from the Milwaukee onto the Northwestern track. The Milwaukee was already into really a bad way. They were almost a broke railroad, and the Milwaukee had a wreck right here, and it took the tower out. And they really had no business from Tama to Cedar Rapids. So instead of rebuilding the tower, they just took the track out of service. And at this point, they went on to the Northwestern, and they stayed on the Northwestern to Cedar Rapids, and then they went back on their own track. So the little tower here is a Northwestern tower. Belle Plaine had two towers, a small one and a large one. and this happens to be their small one. Lake Junction Models makes it. It is made from information that when they did the evaluation, so it's right on as far as size and all the windows and everything else that goes with it. So at this point, we'll go through Tama on the northwestern side. And at the top is a map of this was back when it was still single track. And you can see the two trains coming in, tracks coming in. One says Milwaukee, one says Northwestern. And then up at the left, you see one that kind of goes up out of the picture. The Northwestern also had a branch line out of Tama, and they kind of called it the Northwestern's Northern. But there was also a small electric railroad, which was a streetcar line, and it was abandoned. And in its place, they built a little railroad from Tama to Toledo, which was they had a little small diesel locomotive, and Toledo and Tama sat side by side, and this little railroad served the juvenile home with coal and so forth, and they had a couple of things, a canning plant and a stockyard. I didn't model it. It would be kind of neat if I'd have had more room. I would have. Down in the left-hand corner, you see the layout. The green being Northwestern, orange being Milwaukee, and you can see where the two of them come together. So now we're going to go through town, and we'll go through the farming area, and we'll end up at M Junction. The bridges were, there was two bridges here. One of them is a Central Valley Bridge. I made the bridges so that I didn't have to crawl under anymore, and they both lift up. They have two square brass tubes under them to conduct the power and to keep the bridge sturdy, and so that it doesn't collapse. So you'll see them as we come along. Okay. I guess I forgot that we still had the horns in there.
That's all right. It sounds like the ones going through Edwardsburg.
Enough to wake you up.
I could hear BNSF trains moving on the track going north and south between Denver and heading south.
Hey, Greg, can we stop that a minute? You see the two bridges here? The one of them is up. That was the one that was on the Milwaukee. The one on the Northwestern is down. A second ago, we passed a working semaphore signals. My signals are geared to the turnouts, and they're not occupancy signals. But they do tell you that you have the right of way as far as the turnouts are concerned, and so you aren't running across the switch the wrong way. So, okay.
Did we go to the bridge that is up right now before?
Tell me again.
Did we travel through that bridge that's turned up right now?
Yes, we did travel through that bridge when we went from Gladstone to Vining. See, these segments of the movie were made at different times. So that's why you could see things that look a little different. Railroad cars are different. The diesels sometimes, steam engines sometimes. And then I just patched them together into to make them all into a complete trip. So the last piece of this is we're going to leave M Junction. We're going to go on to the double track of the Northwestern. Since it's Northwestern, we're going to be left-hand running. And you can, if you watch closely, the tower light will change from red to yellow to approach the receiving track. Quick stop on the bridge here, and I had to make a switch to a different one. Notice the cross arm on the pole. After I saw that, I said, you know, I ought to fix that thing. So I think in the next little segment, I think I fixed it. We'll find out in a second.
Oh, it went to the beginning again. All right, that was the end.
Yeah. Ah, look. Cross arm looks a little better now. There's the light changed.
Yeah.
Now we're coming into the receiving track.
I did it again.
And the train now is in, but there's a little bit more to this. Here's well, there was a minute ago, a diagram of the yard. And just to give you a little bit of idea, up at the top of the yard is the track to the engine facility. Coming down is the hump yard, which is a rider type yard, does not have retarders. Then you come down a little bit further and you have the makeup tracks and the receiving tracks. And the lowest track down there is where the stockyard and the scale is. On the left-hand side, we have the depot. There are some yard tracks over there. And then we will go off to the staging yard holding tracks. This yard is everything. It is Council Bluffs, it's Chicago, and it's Cedar Rapids. Everything comes out of here, comes back into here. And when you make up trains, you really just got to follow what the waybill says and don't worry about who you are or where you are. So when the guy makes up trains on the hump yard, he'll use 2 tracks to make up his train. And if he's making up a train that's in Chicago, okay, the staging yard is Chicago now. If he's making up a track for our train for out of Council Bluffs, he's in Council Bluffs now. So it takes a while to understand that, but after a while it works just fine. I don't have room to have both a yard at both ends of the railroad. So there's a little bit more here, another piece of this. And so the trains have arrived and we check the waybills to see if there's anything that needs to be done, such as some cars need to be weighed. Some cars need to go to the freight house. but most of them will end up just going to the storage track. So, and here we see a locomotive pushing the cars on the storage track. There are 4 trays. Each tray holds 36 cars. There are 3 tracks on a tray. The 2 trays are up at the same level. Down underneath, which you can't see, are shelves that hold the other 2 trays. A usual operating station will take 2 trays. So we'll run all 6 tracks out of there, run them through the hump yard where all the staging is done. I do not make up trains beforehand. All the trains are made up by someone the day we have an operating session. If I make another one of these, it'll be a Northwestern train, and we'll do a little bit more work with how our train is made up. And get rid of that telephone call. So any questions? Otherwise, I think we're getting pretty well done.
Yeah, very nice, Ron.
What was your experience like, your academic experience in the one-room schoolhouse?
Well, let me tell you, I went through 9 years there, not because I failed, but because they had primary. Back in those days,
Got through 6 grades in 9 years, huh?
yeah, they called it, today they call it kindergarten. Back then they called it primary, okay?
Yeah.
For 9 years, I was the only kid in my class.
Whoa.
So graded on the curve, I did pretty good.
You're the top.
That's how you look at it. You're
top
also the worst.
He was the #1 top student every year. That's something.
Every year. But country
Rob?
school is interesting because every year you hear every class. When I'm in kindergarten or primary, I'm hearing the 8th graders. And when I'm in 1st grade, I'm hearing the 8th graders. And when I'm in 2nd grade, I'm hearing the 8th graders. Well, when you get to 8th grade, you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
A lot of repetition.
So yeah, the kids coming out of the country schools did pretty well in high school because every year they were taught all over again. And the teacher did not have every single grade every year. I think at maximum, we might have had 12 pupils there. And some grades had 2 or 3, and there would be grades that would be just missing. The teacher had quite a job to teach actually all 9 grades before we were all done.
Yeah, I think my mom graduated from Popejoy. I believe they had 7 or 8 in their graduating class.
When I first went to school, we didn't even have electricity in the schoolhouse. We had, just lanterns. And of course, the kids all had to go out every morning and get the bucket of water for our common crock of water. And, we did burn coal for heat. We had one big furnace, I didn't want a furnace. It's just like a big potbelly stove in the middle of the schoolhouse.
All right, hey, Ron, I got a question. This is Jeff. Hey, on one of your first slides on Train 102, you showed that Milwaukee F unit, number 83A.
Yes.
Kind of like the lightning strike paint scheme.
Yes.
When did that paint scheme get discontinued?
Well, it was one of the early ones, and I'm not going to be exactly accurate here, but I would say by 1980 they were pretty well gone into the newer scheme, and they certainly left when the Union Pacific moved over to the Milwaukee in the 50s, and at that point they repainted all of the passenger units into the Union Pacific colors. And that's not actually the very first scheme. The very first scheme was more black.
Yeah, because what reason I ask is that I'm modeling the Erie Lackawanna in '64, and they had some Milwaukee run-through trains. And I really, really like that power. And I just didn't know if it was relevant for '64 or not.
I think so. I think you'll see that Milwaukee was always kind of a poor railroad, and they didn't paint the engines very often. So I think you could very easily use that.
Good to know. Thanks.
The scenery on your railroad is very effective.
Yeah, thanks. If you watch the cop cam on your own computer, it's quite smooth and it's really quite in focus. When we rebroadcast, it isn't near as in focus as what it is when you first see it.
We're setting up a division YouTube channel, and so we'll have these recordings on YouTube in a little higher fidelity, so you'll be able to see that.
Ron, I just wanted to say that, I've operated your lab several times now, and the thing I like most about it is how you very cleverly intertwined those two different railroads, the two different routes in the space you had, and using the staging yard and everything the way you do. I think it's a really great track plan. It's very clever route planning that really packs a lot of, space in the real world into a believable sort of session. I just wanted to say I thought it was really well thought through.
Here's the thing. Everything there I've built, and including all of the electrical and everything, the bench work and all. And that's about as large a railroad as you can handle if you're going to do everything. Yeah. If you have a crew that can help you with, wiring and all of those things, then you can do a much bigger railroad. And scenery takes a lot of time. I've rebuilt scenery. I'll continue to rebuild scenery as we find things. I have several little projects going right now. So it's really never ending, even though it looks like it's pretty well done.
Yeah, it's never ending.
Yeah. There is one area that is really confusing to people because you have to go through that area twice. And unfortunately, when you go through it one way, you're going west. And when you go through it the other way, you're going east. And that really adds to the confusion. I have thought about this 100 times. How in the world could I make a change so that you did not go through that same little piece of area twice? And so far, I guess age is everything that I said, you know what? I guess that's the way it's going to be.
I miss running on your railroad.
Yep.
Well, we do a little bit on Wednesday afternoon, but those folks that live so far away, it's hardly worth the effort to drive 50 miles just to operate for a couple of hours. Those people that live right next to me, we've done some changes in how we're operating. We kind of are open all the time. In other words, I have a set schedule, but we stop after 2 hours and we just pick up at the same point 2 weeks later. And I didn't do that before. Before we ran a good 4 hours and we ran the full schedule, and I reset everything, although I don't change trains, but we start off at the top again. So I've made some changes. Anybody that would like to do a Zoom next month, why we don't have anybody on tap to do their railroad, it would be nice to see other railroads. On Friday night, we've had some Zooms of a little group that we have, and we saw some really nice railroads on Friday night.
Yep. Yeah, everybody's welcome to that too. Just get a hold of one of us if you don't know about it, and we'll get you connected.
Yeah, so who's next on the list, Greg?
Barry Carlberg is going to be next Friday, and he's going to be presenting on curating a museum railroad.
Yeah, Barry was a long history of working for the railroads. If you have an opportunity at Eastern time, it's at, what is it, 7 o'clock?
7:30 Eastern, 6:30
7:30
Central.
Eastern, yeah, 6:30 Central. And I think it'll be very good this coming Friday.
Yep. Yeah, it's always fun. Always a little different. And we sometimes have technical challenges, believe it or not.
Well, yes, Zooms do have technical challenges.
Hey, I appreciate its availability.
Oh yeah, it's good fun.
Absolutely.
So on the Michiana Zoom, you said in a month or so you need somebody, Ron?
Yes,
Yeah.
we do. We you know, we've redid 2 of them, which, you know, they gained experience and they came out better. And we would certainly like to see yours, John.
How did you do this? Did you send the slides to Greg or send the digital pictures to Greg and then he set it up? Or do I set it up as a PowerPoint type thing, or?
You can do it yourself if you want, but I'm more than happy to assemble that for you. What Ron did is sent me the videos and the pictures with numbers. So each one was numbered and I just put them together in the order that he set. It's real simple.
Well, right now I'm in the middle of installing a bunch of signals and some scenery, and there's always outdoor work to do too. But I'll be in touch. Maybe in a month or so, I could probably do it. I'll give you a call, Ron or Greg, in about a week or so, and let you know if it's possible. Would that be okay?
That sounds good.
Yeah, that'd be great. You know, and we don't need to have an absolute full hour. There are things that could be done on a smaller basis. We could have more than one person come on for a half hour.
Yep.
What would we be looking for is the 19th of September.
Yeah.
That's the 3rd Saturday.
I might be able to do that. It takes to go from Dunsmore up to Portland. The actual run itself takes 22 minutes. So at speed, so maybe I would just have segments of it, and then describe the track plan. And then you've got from Portland up to Spokane involved too. So you know, it's a 45-minute track ride just going through there. And you got the cop cam, Ron? Is there? Can I just look on Amazon for that?
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, I sent one down to, help me out here.
Alan Black?
No, not Alan.
Mike Martin?
Mike Martin. And I would be glad to send it to you if you'd like to try it. It's just simple. You won't have any problem figuring it out.
Okay, let me, like I said, give me about a week and I'll know for sure. And
the other thing, John, is it's neat to find the problems you didn't even think about.
yeah, that's what I'm afraid of, Ron.
Watch out for the spiders in your tunnels.
But you know, you can clip out those little things that you don't like people to see. So
You know, talk about spiders. About a month ago, I went down there and I'm moving a shelf and I saw something on the corner of my eye, and I've been bitten by a brown recluse spider and lost my vision through it. So I don't like spiders at all. And it was a spider, so I stomped on it. This was a wolf spider. And as my foot came down, his legs were still sticking out the sides of my shoe. That's how big this thing was. I don't know if it was a spider or a crab, but it was big.
Same thing.
There was no other spiders around, so I think he ate all the other ones, and problem solved.
Then if you happen to be a former telephone man, you do notice those utility posts with the crooked cross arms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked in the utility industry for 27 years, and I saw that right off the bat. I thought, well, they're not going to fix it till a storm comes through.
although in reality, once in a while, that did happen.
Yeah.
I like I noticed the small plants along the right of way, the weeds and the small bits of brush and things like that. They look quite good, especially going through Tama. That's where I was noticing it.
If I could get it together, I would put a little clinic on how to make tufts. They figured out how to make them, and it's kind of interesting. And but I gotta figure out how to film this thing so that it makes sense to people.
Yeah.
In fact, is in one of the layouts, Chuck was over. He saw it at John's layout. John actually used a piece of the plaster cloth that you use when you break your leg or something, and he painted it. And we actually grassed the cloth and put it over the layout. I've got to the point that I have put grass on paper. You can put grass on anything, including your hand. You probably, if you need it for your hair, we probably could even take care of putting new hair on your head.
There you go.
It'd be
Static
green.
grass?
That'd be the problem. It'd be green. That's
Oh, but you can buy it in other shades, you know, like a
Sure.
yeah, dried range grass. That would look all right.
That would be a shocking experience, though, wouldn't it?
I think
That's
green.
right.
I think
very good.
I'm not young enough to wear green hair.
You know, the good Lord didn't plant grass on a busy street.
That's right.
Oh, that's good.
You know, Greg, you mentioned a meeting in a couple of months. I'm just finishing up wiring the reverse loop in my furnace room. And it's been a neat exercise, but I wouldn't mind if we have, you know, just a small amount of time or something like that, you know, showing that.
Sure.
I think I recently saw an article about, you know, when you have a Zoom account, you have a specific ID to yourself. So you can log into a Zoom account, and you can also put, by using that ID, put it on your phone. So like you're logged into the meeting twice, and then put it on a selfie stick, and you can carry it around with you so you can display from it.
Yeah.
So
I do that all the time for one of my clients. They have national sort of monthly meetup things where they talk to their audience that way, and I run 2 cameras that way all the time. So yeah, it's actually really useful.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you know, I don't know if anybody's planning on staging on the railroad, the current railroad, or the one they're building. But, you know, mine's pretty simple. It's only set up for 4 trains because I'd only planned on 8 trains being on the railroad at one time. But I can show how I did it, and we kind of got it set up so that the locomotives sit on dead tracks until you're assigned a locomotive. And then you would go get that locomotive and go to a staging track and pick up your train. And then you could come out of the reverse loop onto the railroad. So right now I'm hooking up the LCC modules to that to try to make sure I can make all that detection work.
One of the things that I've struggled with is that how to do video like your cab ride on Zoom in a way that doesn't provide that jerkiness. And one of the things I was wondering is if the person who's moderating the the session, if they were actually playing that directly, not from the other person's computer, but if you were playing it from YouTube video, if it would be more fluid.
But, you know, one thing, this camera is so good that it'll pick up, you've heard the locomotives and the whistle. And I've not tried to do this. Take a locomotive that does not have sound on it, but you do the audio as that is moving from one place to another. That might be an interesting thing to try.
I mean, Ron, but as far as like the smoothness of videos go, you know, I presented several videos in my talk last month, and I have no idea how they looked on the other end of the Zoom call. Were there like jerky video things going on last time too, or anybody remember that?
My recollection is they were nice and smooth.
I mean,
Yeah.
I wonder how much that has to do with things like the actual horsepower of the computer you're showing it on versus the internet connection and your Wi-Fi connection. There's a lot of different variables in there that might control why it would play smoothly or not.
Well, and we've done it
Being
before where it
part
was
of the
smoother.
computer.
The difference today is we're streaming live to Facebook. That may have something to do with it.
Oh.
Maybe taking another portion of bandwidth.
Yeah.
So maybe that's not such a great idea. We'll just keep trying different stuff till we get it right.
Right.
I think
And
it
we'll
does have to do
we'll
with
even try after that. We'll never know if we got it right, but we'll just.
I know.
Rich and Tom, I'll send you just a little short piece of this directly to you, and you can view it and see the difference between that. And I'm not sure what I'll pick out, but I can only send 22 MBs because, you know, that's all you can get over.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you can do it other ways, but I'm probably not smart enough to do that.
It's great. I couldn't figure out what you had.
Well, I guess if that's it, it's probably time for people to eat lunch and so forth. So
That's
thanks
right.
for watching.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks a
Thanks,
lot.
Thanks,
everybody.
Ron, and
Thanks, everybody. Good to see everybody this morning.
Yeah, very
Jim,
good.
we'll be looking
Yeah.
for you to post a couple pictures in Colorado.
Yeah.
Us that aren't traveling
Okay.
need some railroad input.
Okay, I think I could take some shots on at least something from the Royal Gorge route.
There you go.
Thank you, Ron, very much.
Nice layout,
Right.
Ron.
Bye,
Appreciate it.
everybody.
Good luck.
See you.
Thank you,
Nice job,
Ron.
Ron. And Greg,
Thanks,
thanks
Ron.
for running
Enjoyed
the
the
thing.
presentation.
Sure.